It's the PC Gamer Show. I'm James Davenport, editor here at PCGamer.com. This week we're talking Outriders. It's Steven versus Morgan in an epic showdown. And then the hardware folks stop by. This week they're talking about the great GPU shortage. Do we despair or do we hold on to hope? It's going to be a fun one. Stick around. Hey, everybody. It's the PC Gamer Show. I'm James Davenport, an editor at PCGamer.com. I have two special pals with me on the show today, two special buddies. One, Stephen Messner. How are you, Stephen Messner?
I'm fine.
Okay. The energy today. Yeah.
Hey, man, you're the host. You set the tone, and you said it real calm.
I said it right here. Just like two notches above Ben Stein. And one,
I'm great.
Morgan Park. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Just fine.
Wow.
There we go. Now the energy is kind of like
sexy.
Sexual. Well, we're going to have the wettest argument about Outriders online.
Wow.
Yeah. Outriders, looter, shooter. What do you think about when I say those things? Looter, shooter, together. Looter, shooter. What comes to mind?
I think of the big two. I think of Borderlands and Destiny, really.
You consider Borderlands one of the big ones still? I think Borderlands is culturally died. I think it's done.
Yeah. And good riddance.
Culturally diminished. Yeah. I mean, it's still one of the big ones.
You're right.
The sequel just came out 2 years ago.
Yeah, but no.
2 years ago. What? That's an eternity. That 2019
video game time. That's like 40 Valheims, man.
Yeah. When I hear looter shooter, I think of just shit. Frankly, when was the last time a good one came out?
Well, I mean, maybe recently. Are you guys getting the beeping? Is that coming in?
Slightly.
Only when you talk a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, there's construction happening right outside my window, which is great for my role, which involves recording a lot of audio. So ignore that. Let's just ignore the annoying sounds, listeners. Anyway, we're going to talk about Outriders today. It's an interesting mix of the things, the looting and the shooting. And as Stephen put so succinctly in a headline last week, was that this week? Outriders is probably one of the most divisive games of 2021 so far. And I think like even stretching beyond that, it feels like, I don't feel like I've felt a game this split down the middle in a while.
Not in a while. Yeah.
Yeah. So evenly, you're for it or you're not. And even on staff. So we're here to talk about that rift. We've got a liker and a disliker. I think, to be fair, Morgan, you reviewed the game for us. And it's you're not a total hater. There are things that I think you note that are interesting and redemptive in some ways about Outriders. It's not a total loss across the board for you.
It's fine. There are things that are fine about it, things that are good about it.
Okay.
But it's not worth your time.
And I want to like characterize you guys where you kind of come from before we get into it. But so Morgan, you are sort of Mr. Shooty. We've had you on the show many times to talk the shooty games before. And that's sort of where you're coming in from. This is not to discredit you and say you don't play looter shooters or have not. You have quite like dozens of hours under your belt across.
Yeah. Like I mentioned in the review, I think I come at it as a shooter fan first and a looter fan second.
Gotcha.
And I think the game definitely wants you to be a looter fan first. As far as I can tell.
And so, Steven, I don't want to mischaracterize you either, but I
love loot.
You do, buddy.
Swiggity swooty. I'm coming for that looty.
Oh no. All right. I'm chopping that out. That's good. You are sort of one of our go-to RPG guys, MMO guys, and loot and MMOs go together.
I'm a live service guy, I guess. I don't know.
You like games that sort of take advantage of you and cause long-term brain damage.
Yeah. I wonder if that's Siege. Something in my childhood.
Yeah.
That makes me prone to games that abuse me.
But so you like when the numbers go up, and you like when you can sort of build.
I'm
out
all about them
characters.
numbers. Yeah.
And
building stuff, which is, I think that's funny. Like, it's just, I feel like that's very indicative of why Morgan and I have a split on this game, because Morgan, you said it's a game that definitely wants, it appeals to the looters first. And I'm a looter, and it appeals to me. So
this is also, I mean, like you like shooting games too. Like Steven has moved a mouse around to click on heads before, like many, many times. So we're all coming at this from, a place of experience and on good faith. It's not like we have our sides just like carved in stone for us ahead of time.
Nobody here is like a genre newbie in any of the things that Outriders dabbles in.
Yeah. But so I want to hear from both of you. I don't know regarding the split. I think, is it as simple as this kind of thing, this like genre split, or are the things you love or don't love about Outriders more essential than simple genre preferences? Because I think a lot of people go into it like drawing this line around shooter versus looter. Let's hear from Morgan. What about this game do you think fails for you in bringing that stuff together?
I mean, the main thing is that like it's hard to enjoy finding loot when I'm just not even enjoying the shooting that much. Like the actual thing you're doing the entire time. It's a third-person cover shooter, obviously, but most of the time it doesn't really encourage you to use cover, because you almost like the recent Doom games, you have to get in there and kill folk to actually get any health back. And I just don't like the shooting that much. Like I think Division feels better. I think like single player, popular single player third person shooters like Gears feels better. Like it is hard to know what those games are like and play this and be like, man, it's not that great. And for that to be the entire game, like this, the game is literally kill this arena, run down a narrow hallway, and go to the next one. And it's really the fundamentals. And then the loot is fine, but I also spent the entire game shooting like essentially the same assault rifle and shotgun with different numbers on it. And like when there's not meaningful modifiers on that stuff for a while, at least, it just felt samey.
I couldn't disagree more.
Well, why?
I really like the shooting in it. Like, it's not, I don't think it's as good or as tactile as Destiny 2 is. I think Destiny 2 is also a game that does a really good job of giving individual guns like a really unique identity. So like you get a certain gun and it feels, and caveat, I have not gotten a legendary weapon in this game yet. I've gotten legendary armor, but I haven't found like an actual legendary weapon, which I think kind of packages more of that unique identity into a gun. But I think the shooting just feels fine to me. Like I'm not saying it's, the best shooting feel I've ever felt in a game. That's a weird sentence. The best shooting feel I've ever felt. But like, I think it's on par with Division, where like you're firing guns and like, the guns have these base subtypes. There's a couple of things that I really appreciate about the game. I love that there's like variants for guns and that you can freely swap those variants to suit a certain play style. So like an assault rifle, there's a few different types of assault rifles, but even within a specific type of assault rifle, there are variants that you can swap between in the crafting interface, where you can make it like a burst fire assault rifle, so like bullets will do more damage and it does burst fire, or you can opt for one that has a bigger clip but is less accurate. And so there's like ways of tweaking it towards your certain play style. So like, I'm not someone that I like to spray and pray. Like I think, especially like with the skill buildups and stuff like that, like and the way your class works. Like I have a skill, for example, I'm playing as a pyromancer, and I have a skill called volcanic bullets, which just basically turns my bullets into fire. And that skill only lasts as long as my magazine lasts. And so when I'm using that skill, I really want to favor guns that have a super large clip, because then I can fire as many bullets as possible without reloading. And so finding those little synergies, finding those little things, I think adds a really fascinating layer over top of it. And it feels really distinct and different to me, even if like the tactile shooting doesn't necessarily feel good or bad. Like it doesn't feel superb or awful. I think what really stands out to me and what I really appreciate is like a lot of games, it's like, here's your gun. The gun comes with, these are the mods it has. This is how it feels. And either you like it or you fucking don't. And I think what this game does that's fantastic is that it gives you a lot of base items. And then as you get further into the game, you unlock more crafting recipes, you unlock more mods that you can place on anything as often as you want. And it gives you a lot of tools to really experiment and like figure out what the ideal build for your character is. And that layer sitting on top of the shooting elements is what I find really fun. But I totally can also like see Morgan's standpoint where like there is not a ton of enemy diversity. The arenas are very like arena-y. I think that, there's some fundamental flaws with like combat design. Like there's very tanky enemies that the game throws at you. And those enemies will just walk towards you. And they're so tanky and dangerous that you have no option but to retreat. So lots of times I enter an arena and I end up fighting in the arena I already cleared because I had to back up and give space to those guys. And so, I don't think this is a perfect game, but by no means should anyone, take me saying that like Outriders is a 10 out of 10 because it is not. But I am enjoying it. I think like where Morgan and I differ is like Morgan's like, oh, it's a 6 out of 10. It's not worth your time. And I'm like, it's a 7 out of 10. And it absolutely is worth your time, which is like, it's like the splitting the tiniest of hairs. Yeah. The thin loot line, as they call it. But like, so that's where I'm kind of sitting with it.
Okay. Well, I want to know. Yeah. Or go for it.
Sorry, we totally have to talk about the mod system, which is
yes.
It's definitely the best part of the game to me. It is very it's actually the best and kind of problematic part of the game for me because it is really liberating after playing a lot of Destiny and Borderlands in the past to just see this huge vault of mods that I've built up just from dismantling guns like I usually would in any game like this, and have that just be so much more valuable because you now have all of the cool stuff, unique traits that it had banked to attach to anything else. And there's like literally no limit on it. Like you unlock all the mods are like either tier 1, 2, or 3. And like, if you just have a bunch of cool tier 3 mods that are like clearly better than the other ones, just put nothing but tier 3 mods on it. There's nothing stopping you. That is undeniably cool. And, one example I bring up in the review that stuck with me is just that I got this really cool legendary gun, the Thunderbird. It's like this cool thundery assault rifle that calls down lightning with every shot. It's sweet. And then after like an hour and a half or so, it was just outpaced by all the rest of the loot. Like even standard shotguns or assault rifles were just having bigger numbers. So I was like, all right, guess I'm done using this thing. Even though I don't want to, because it looks awesome and feels good. And then I dismantle it, get its mods, I put it on my new stuff, and it just doesn't feel the same anymore. It's like it does the same thing, but I just realized that like what's so special about legendaries if the stuff that makes them special are really just these mods that you can bank into anything else. Like it just kind of took the fun out of the legendary for me. And that's not to say that there's no use in legendaries dropping, because they have other stats that are randomly rolled and that you can get lucky with, but they're just nothing's as dramatic or useful as the mods. And since mods aren't really attached to any single gun or armor or whatever, then it's like the loot is really just the mods, and that just took something out of it for me in a shooter.
Right. I feel like we should quickly explain, because if people haven't played this, like the way the system works, you get guns and armor too. They have mods attached to them. And when you dismantle them, so you kind of have two options with stuff you don't want. You can either dismantle it or you can sell it. If you dismantle it, that mod then just gets sort of added to your mod library. And then you can just reapply that mod to other pieces of armor or your guns as many times as you want. So if you get like a really cool mod that you love and then that gun gets outpaced, you can dismantle that gun and then stick it on a different gun and keep rolling with that mod. And so as you sort of play further and further into the game, really what you're doing is unlocking more and more recipe or ingredients to play with and then customizing the builds. That's what I find fun though. Like I kind of get like, oh, I had this really cool looking gun and I had to dismantle it. I mean, like you could have boosted its level and kept it going. That's it's somewhat expensive.
It's possible, but it is expensive. The the crafting material that you have the least of is the straight up level up material. So like, no, actually I can't, at least throughout the campaign, I couldn't just keep leveling it up because I just wasn't getting enough stuff.
I think it's one of those cases where like maybe like some balance needs to be done there, because I game like RPGs suffer with this a lot, which is like the cost of constantly paying to upgrade something tends to outscale the cost of just sticking in your stash, waiting until you've reached endgame, going back, getting that thing, and then just paying once to level it up all the way. And actually I can't say that for sure. I don't know how the math folds out on that, but that tends to be like the case with a lot of these games.
Yeah, that might totally work if you just stash it.
Either way, like stashing a weapon and being like, well, I guess I'll use this in 15 hours doesn't sound great either. So like I get that, but like to me, I love the fact that like I think what really surprised me with the game, especially recently, like I've already was enjoying the game, and then as I started to dig into the crafting system and really experimenting with the builds, that's where like it really is now just the sole thing that I love about Outriders is like, yeah, I don't mind that I'm dismantling a cool gun, because to me, the cool thing is like, oh God, I got this amazing new legend or this new mod. And now this like unlocks an entirely new way of playing. Like I was talking about these flaming bullets, like I was experimenting with like abilities where like, man, I have an ability that when enemies are on fire, I like trigger this AoE burst and it does enormous damage, but only if they're on fire. And so when I finally, I was using the volcanic round spell that I was talking about in order to sort of light enemies on fire. And that required finding guns with really big magazines, but then didn't have enough, like the accuracy on them was really poor. And so that was kind of like a trade-off I was having to deal with. But then I got this mod that was just turned that ammo that gun shoots into fire bullets all the time. So I didn't even need the volcanic round skill anymore, because I could just use fire bullets as a mod. And then I could stick it on guns that were far more sort of accurate, that I could, more suited my play style in a certain way. And then use it in conjunction with this skill where I could basically go into an arena, like light up a bunch of dudes so that they were all on fire, and then pop this like AoE burst. I wish I could remember what it's called, and do like enormous damage. And like, finding those little hacks is what it feels like really is like really, really satisfying to me in the combat. And so, yeah, I think Outriders is a game that like really, it depends on what you want out of a game. Like I think theory crafters, people that like the sort of theory crafting element of RPGs, they like, experimenting and being rewarded for that experimentation. I think there's a lot to take away from this game that isn't enjoyable. But yeah, like I can totally see if that you're coming to it, even, as like a Gears of War fan, and you're expecting sort of like, oh, it's a Gears of War, but also an RPG. Like it's not. Like Gears of War is a far better cover shooter. Gears of War has more interesting weapon types because they're very sort of like, it also has far fewer. So I get what you're saying, but to me, like that's what is cool, is being able to strip my guns of their mods and then unlocking this entire new play style.
It is, it is totally cool to mix and match those mods and find combinations. When I think about like how cool those combinations sound, and I think about actually applying them to the combat, it's like, man, great. I get to apply them to these flat ass levels and these boring ass enemies that feels like a repeat of like the same tutorial level for like 12 hours. And yeah, I think that kills more of the enthusiasm than I even thought before. Like it just sounds so much cooler in theory than when I actually go and do it.
I don't know what to say to change anyone's mind who feels that way, because like the enemies, like they're not exactly, I think like the game just struggles with not having enough interesting enemy types. Like there's snipers, and there's guys that run at you and do melee, and then there's guys that run at you with shotguns, and then there's ranged boys that kind of hang around in the mid.
Then there's alien dogs. Like this, I feel like I've shot the same alien dog in like 80 different games now. Just like fleshy, smooth face, like, or monsters with blades for arms. Like it's all in
the
there.
Worst part about the alien dogs is the parts where like it feels like it just throws 7 waves of them at you. Like I think the game also has a problem with padding out combat encounters, where it's like, all right, like I'm just ready to move on. Like let's just keep things going. But it's like, but wait, there's more, and it's just another 20 alien dogs. And you just do that like 3 more times before like the sort of like the door unlocks and you can move on to the next thing. So yeah, like it is by no means like good shooting fundamentals. I think the game is saved a lot by just how fun the RPG system is. And I think the abilities are really empowering to use. Like, I think it says a lot that I'm enjoying this game despite, lacking enemy variety or having somewhat uninspired levels. I think there's still some really cool levels, and I think that the level design is fine, but it feels sort of out. It feels very like last generation, like Xbox 360, and how it does a very poor job of like blending obstacles into the terrain. You know what I mean? Like, you walk into a zone,
absolutely,
and you very much are like, these are all the hilarious cover spots. Yeah.
It's literally hilarious.
It's worth saying that the environment art itself is incredible. It's beautiful. Top of the line. You'll look out on to vistas and just see these gigantic, like, dilapidated cities, or like amazing forests, like 300-foot tall aliens, like all that out there. It looks awesome. It's like a classic Halo, and like you're known for good skyboxes. Like, this is just as good as that. And then then the actual level is nothing like that.
Back to eye level,
waist high cover.
Well, I want to talk sort of about that, because I think that applies to the narrative here and the world building. Anything happening at eye level is, to my eyes, embarrassing and just terrible across the board. I'm only like 5 hours in, something like that. But Steven, you're sort of adamant about the world building here, and the surprisingly big codices, like just chilling in the menus here, where you can read about almost every single character. There are multiple notes and various epistolary items to pick up throughout each level. That really flesh out the world. I want to hear you guys talk about the story here and how you think it's delivered, and whether it's worth digging into or not.
I mean, I can go first.
Go for it. Hit me.
Yeah. I think the story is at times so bad. I think the worst that the story is it's so bad it's good. And then I think there's just times where it's just good. And the intro, I think the problem with Outriders is that it has a god awful intro. I think it has whiplash. It moves way too quickly. You're kind of like the way it works. And this isn't really spoilers, but like, if you're not even familiar with what the setup of this game is like, you are the last vestiges of humanity that has fled a dying Earth to, like, you arrive on this planet that people scouted out and decided would be good for colonization. You get there, you are the first people on boots on the ground, and you're kind of like figuring out whether or not the planet is as cool, like as habitable as it seems. And very quickly you realize that, like, no, there's definitely some like spooky shit going on here. And maybe we shouldn't, start the full on colonization process. And this guy like betrays you, and he's like, no, we're going to do it anyway. And then you wake up years later. And I don't feel like this is a spoiler territory, because it's like the first 3 hours. Like,
it's also in the demo that a lot of people
played,
so.
Right. And it's just so poorly delivered that it doesn't even matter once you sort of wake up in the future. So you get wounded and you go into cryo sleep a second time. So there's like 2 time skips in like 3 hours. And you wake up at the second time, and humanity, like the colonization efforts started, and the bad things that were happening, which I won't spoil, happened, or the bad things that you were worried about happened. And now, like, you basically wake up to a world that has gone to shit. And I think that's a really compelling premise. Like, I think that there's really cool ideas and ingredients behind the story. And I think that's what I latch onto. I talking to other people that are enjoying the game's story, I think that's what they latch onto as well. I think where the game stumbles is like the execution of those things. The cutscenes are often really bad, but they're like, to me, they're really bad in an enjoyable way. They're very erratic. Like, characters get capped mid cutscene repeatedly, and I don't understand like what writer at People Can Fly is obsessed with like suddenly killing off someone, but it happens multiple times throughout the game. And, to me, it's just, there's lots of like sort of B tier action movie lines, and like your main character is like a snarky badass who like always has like a funny quip and stuff like that. But I don't know what it is. I find that shit endearing. Like, I think in the setting that is like so hopelessly like dystopian and apocalyptic, the hero's like sense of levity and like really dark humor actually kind of appeals to me. I find it like a pretty nice contrast to everything that's going on. And I think that there's just cool ideas. Like this world has gone to shit. It's like ravaged by these weird magical storms, this human colony. And now it like makes superheroes, and these superheroes each have like a very sort of unique identity, and they have very, unique superpowers. You're one of them. That's where like the RPG classes come from and your magic abilities come from. And I think like it's really interesting, like getting to know who these heroes are, and sort of, I think there's interesting power dynamics. There's interesting faction dynamics. So like, I think there's just a lot of cool backdrop stuff that I'm really interested in seeing and like digging into, even if like when I watch an actual cutscene, there is like dialogue that makes me bristle and cringe, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
Yeah, the main character's voice, I'll say, as the male voice, is comically like deep. I don't know. It's like if anyone's played Days Gone, which is coming to PC sometime soon, really reminds me of that guy in the sense that he just like is aggressively sarcastic, but also like just constantly mouthing off, and not like a Nathan Drake way, but more of like a asshole spec ops dude from like some Tom Clancy movie or something like that. And he's kind of terrible sometimes. Like there's an early cutscene where he just like shoots this guy in the head that he said he wasn't going to shoot in the head, and like that's like definitely an action movie thing that some anti-hero type guy would do, but it's just like it's not really how he's acted up until then. It's not really how he acts in the rest of the game. It's just bizarre, the kind of moralities they try to establish with these characters, which it is just one of those things where even though there are a lot of cutscenes in this game, they don't really give a ton of time to flesh out the characters, because you're
really
more busy, in my experience. You're trying,
right? Yeah,
there's some of your side. So as you go along, a lot of the story is kind of a road trip to go do this one specific thing, and that's how you sort of justify seeing like every region there is to see on the planet. And along the way, you kind of end up getting a band of friends. Like it almost becomes like one of those band of friends type things. And you get some time with each character. You get some moments to like each character basically they have time to have like one defining background trait basically. And that's fine. Like they're fine. I don't think they're particularly well acted or that deep or interesting. So I would watch the conversations, but kind of snooze past others. And but the main character is just honestly for how much he talks, he just feels like so much of a blank slate the entire time. I almost would have preferred if he was a silent protag, like in Destiny or something.
Right.
Just so I don't know. I'm more used to that disconnect where there's no character to this person because there's literally no voice to this person. That's a weird thing that video games do, but at least I'm used to that. I guess I'm just less used to someone like talking the whole time, but not really having much to say other than like, we got to do this thing.
I really like the main character. I'm going to disagree with you because like, I think Days Gone is like a really apt comparison because he definitely, I didn't even realize this at the beginning, but I was just sort of messing around with the character customization and like, there wasn't a ton of options. And so I just ended up settling for this guy with like a big bushy beard and like slicked back, like this long slicked back brown hair. So he looked like a biker.
Looks the same. I think their dad looks almost exactly the same.
So he's like a biker looking dude. And then his character is like literally like an old earth, like Southern biker guy. Like that's just who he is. But then he kind of has like, they definitely try and like give him like the warm, like heart of gold, like cold exterior, gooey interior. And it's like, whatever. It's definitely nothing in this game is like going to win an Oscar for video game writing. That's not even a thing. But you know what I mean? Like no one's going to look back and be like, well, gee whiz, Outriders sure was like ahead of its time in its storytelling. Like it is not. It is like action, like blockbuster, summer blockbuster storytelling at its finest. But that doesn't mean it's not entertaining. And that's what I find is like, I think the story is really entertaining. I think the characters, like it's so funny. Like Morgan, I almost feel bad like going back and forth with you and being like, I disagree, because like really at the end of the day, like there's no like real like evidence that I can like haul up to like prove you wrong and say, you know what I mean? Like it just boils down to opinion. But like I find characters
the vibe
like
you get from it.
Yeah, it's just the vibe. But I think it does like a really good job of characterization, even if like the dialogue isn't exactly like sometimes it's cringy or whatever. Because like I feel like I have a really good idea of who this dude is. I feel like I have a really good idea. Jakub especially is like your Polish friend that you knew from Earth. And I think like he's a really interesting character. I like the characters, even though, yeah, they don't have a ton of depth. This isn't like BioWare where you get to really like know your cast. You get to like really dig into their backstory. But I think what's really interesting about the game is like there's definitely like an air of fatalism in the game that I think is kind of absent from a lot of games. A lot of games are set in dystopias, right? Like that's and apocalypses and stuff like that. Like those big dramatic settings are obviously like rife in all types of games, but it's pretty rare that you see characters that are just so fucking beyond giving a shit. And I think that's what maybe is what is appealing to me about the story, is that like literally everybody is fucking done living. Like Jakub is just drinking himself into oblivion. Like your character just woke up from cryosleep and the world has gone to shit and he's got nothing to do. And so he just sort of has this like whatever attitude. And I find that like kind of funny. A lot of the characters you meet, like their life has just been garbage the entire time. And I think part of this like goes back to the lore. Like I think one thing the lore really does is it kind of does a really good job of painting a very cohesive picture about why life on this planet is just so garbage. Like there's a really thorough history to the garbageness of it all that it's kind of interesting to unpack and pick through.
Is it to interject? Is that, do you think that's played for like black humor or more just
Definitely.
Okay? Because that I think it has it does not establish that very clearly in the opening 5 hours. I feel like I'm waffling back and forth between something that wants to be a Destiny, this expansive like mystical and like a BioWare game, a magic system and all these characters I'm meeting. I'm like, oh my God, this is going to be one of those, huh?
I don't just like Jakub. He definitely is fatalistic and it's kind of comes off as like some sort of alcoholic that's given up. But I don't really understand the dark humor vibe, because they are definitely ready to die, because you get the impression that that's just what living on this planet is just being ready to die anytime, really. But yeah, I don't know. It actually felt pretty self-serious most of the time to me, even if Jakub is the closest thing you get to comic relief.
Right. It could be like, this is me sort of like slapping on like an interpretation or like headcanon, but like I definitely feel like there's, there is issues with tone. Like there's times where it is definitely trying to be serious and then like something weird happens and you're like, what is going on? Or like, it's a very dark and bleak game, but then like you'll have a side quest that tries to just be overtly funny and that stuff just does not land. Like there's a quest where you like go to rescue this prostitute that was like stolen from a brothel, and you go there and really she just is living with like the guy that stole her. Like they're married in a hut in the woods, and when you walk into their hut, they're just having like a domestic argument. Like they're just having this really mean argument, and then your character's just like, well, I guess she's okay, and he just goes back and like hands in the quest, and that's it. It's like, what? And I think they were trying to like go like, oh, look how weird and absurd it is, and it's just like, this is, I don't know, like when games like The Witcher have like their weird little humorous side quests, like I think they're very careful in how they present it and deal with it, and I don't think this game has the same chops. But I definitely think like
random at times with those side quests.
Right.
You legitimately don't know what you're going to get.
Yeah.
Might be a positive in some cases.
But to me, it definitely all just came across as like black humor. There is like an element of seriousness to it, but there's just the way the characters respond to the world and stuff like that was just very like, of fucking course this is going to happen. And like, I kind of like that because like I was saying, it's pretty rare for, I think, games to be so fatalistic. And like, really this game, like from top to bottom, like the people who are still alive in this world, everyone is like a really awful person. Like even the main character, even like characters like Jakob, like even before they left Earth, they made it pretty clear that like they're called Outriders, which are supposed to be this honorable band of like warriors, but they're not even the real Outriders because the real Outriders were all slaughtered on Earth and they were mercenaries that were hired to take up the Outrider name. And in order to even get on the ship to escape Earth, like this isn't spoilers, this is just stuff you dig up in the lore, but like in order to escape Earth, like they very heavily imply that they just like slaughtered a lot of people to make room on the ship for themselves and stuff like that. So like, you know, it's definitely a bleak game. It's definitely a dark game. I don't think it's going to appeal to everyone, but I find it very entertaining, even though I don't necessarily think it's like high art, you know, mustache twist.
Interesting. Okay. So as someone who's like I said, only 5 hours in, I'm still not convinced by either of you, which way I'm going to fall. But
right.
any sort of like final redeeming or damning aspects of this game that you think we haven't touched on or you think are really worth sort of spotlighting for potentially interested listeners and players?
I feel like
I don't know if I caught how far you are through the story, Stephen, but
I've arrived at the forest. I think that's like the most ambiguous way of putting it. I feel like that's maybe halfway.
Yeah, there's more to that game that seems kind of a point in which it opens up even more. And you play for a lot longer. I think campaign took me around 11 to 12 hours. And after that, like people have been saying, making clear, like this is not a service game. People Can Fly has been as clear about that as they can, that even though this looks a lot like Destiny in spots, and will remind you of Destiny as you play it, like you are not ending this campaign and then going straight into the meat of the game. Like that is the meat of the game, is the campaign. And then when you get out, there's expeditions, which are extra missions, unique missions that sort of revisit old biomes, but they are bespoke locations. And there's like 15 of them, including the final bid one. But yeah, kind of like the end game of Diablo, I think Diablo 3 with its dungeons. It's kind of like that, where you choose a mission you've been on before, but then you have like 12 difficulty tiers you can choose from, and you actually have to unlock each one by repetition. But that's pretty much the extent of it. It's they're not saying that some new raid is coming along in a couple months or anything like that. Like they're open to doing expansions maybe, but nothing is promised. So
this is it.
Yeah, this is the game. And the expeditions I think are definitely the best missions in the game, but that's not a really high bar to clear for me. They are definitely fun in co-op. They're hard, and you can definitely make them as hard as you want. And they are the best chance to get interesting loot. So that like automatically makes it probably the best stuff you can play in the game. But they don't last very long, and they don't feel that unique mission to mission. And so after going all the way through the campaign and doing that, like it honestly did not keep me around. Like I played four or five different ones. They cycle. You can only play like 2 or 3 each day, and then they cycle onto different ones. And like every time I played, I was like, "Yep." I kind of wish this was what the game started with. Was this sort of speed, this sort of density of enemies, and this sort of like power level? Because I feel like the game literally is like ending as it's getting started. And once I get to that point,
right.
Just to summarize, if the word end game excites you or terrifies you, heed Morgan's warning there. Stephen, what's your final?
Yeah. Just be aware that it does end.
Be aware.
It
does end.
I think, like as much as I do enjoy this game, like I feel like I'm pretty cognizant of the fact that like it is not I'm not saying that this is a game that everyone needs to go out and buy today. It's not that at all. But I think if you're like really tired of a lot of the problems inherent in games like Destiny 2 and just like the live service model, I find this really refreshing. I think if you're a fan of Gears of War, weirdly enough, if you like Diablo 3 and like tinkering with your character build in Diablo 3 and like the way you could kind of really like mess with each class and the abilities they have, like there's parts of this game that are super reminiscent of that. And I think if you're also like us, kind of like in a weird lull right now where there's not a lot of game releases out, I think this game is great. I think, for people that are maybe on the fence or skeptical, wait for it to go on sale. Cause like Morgan said, the great thing about this is like, you're not dealing with FOMO. There's no fear of missing out because this isn't a live service that's going away. You can play this game in 6 months when it's half off, and it will be. And get the exact same experience that everyone else got. I think that's to the game's credit. The other thing is like, I'm playing it on Xbox, which it's free on Xbox Game Pass. And so, it is hard to talk about this game in terms of value. Like even for me, I'm like, oh, I don't know. Like, would I be as happy with this game if I had paid $80 for it versus just getting it for free on Xbox? Like, and so, it's a tangled web, but I think like, at the end of the day, like I said, if you're someone that's just like, oh, geez, I have played Destiny, but I am continually turned off by the way that Bungie manages to screw up that game season after season. It feels like I feel like Outriders can be really refreshing in a lot of ways. But yeah, you definitely have to go into it expecting it to be like an imperfect experience all the time. But I think it's like one of those rare like flawed games that you can find really endearing, and those games don't come around very often, and they make me very nostalgic. It's nice to play a game that you can like be frustrated at but also really enjoy at the same time.
The secret perfect score is a 7 out of 10. I mean, for 75 on PC Gamer, that's the shit you want.
Too high. Oh, okay.
Those are the classics. Those are the classics.
I was saying 70. Yeah. But that's the thing, right? Like, so anyway, I think like, I don't know. Don't feel bad if you're like, oh, I don't know. I kind of want to play this, but I'm also worried that I'll hate it. Cause like, just wait.
Like I said, like, to me, the fundamentals aren't fun enough to actually be worth my time. But I know plenty of people that are like so into the nitty gritty of Destiny, of just the people that can put 2,000 hours in because they're just incrementally changing the smallest things about their classes and then going into missions that by all logic they should be sick of but aren't.
Right.
Like as just another one of those games that you can eat up. Like Outriders is probably great for that. Like it is more digestible and really more liberating in that sense. It's almost like it feels like you're cheating if you've played a lot of those other games. Like just by the way that you just get to grab all the perks you like and just stick them on without any friction, Yeah,
it's not trying to like pace you out like a lot of live service MMO games try and do that too. They're trying to keep you on a treadmill and they want you running at a very specific speed. And Outriders is just like, just enjoy the game however you want to enjoy it because it's a closed loop thing. And I think, it's great. The other thing I was going to say too is like, obviously, we were talking at the beginning, this is a divisive game. A lot of people either like love it. A lot of people kind of hate it, like, or, are kind of on two sides of this fence here. I think like the best thing you can do if you're someone that's sort of like listening to this podcast right now and still sort of like, oh, I don't know, like just go look at more discussions, like try and get more opinions. Cause this is like a weird game where it's like, it's not often that a game is this divisive. And so I think the only way you can really know if you're going to enjoy it or not is to, maybe watch it in action. Like I think it's a game that I would recommend cautiously to people, but like, it's going to require a lot of investment in terms of like, go watch some Twitch streams, go talk, like go find some people that whose opinion, like you personally really relate to and talk to them about it and stuff like that, or see what they're saying online if they're like a Twitch streamer or whatever. Cause like, it's just, I don't know. It's not a game that you can easily recommend. And it's not a game that I think you can not recommend in the same capacity, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I wonder if the demo is still live, because honestly, that was the best time to.
But the intro is so bad.
Yourself. That's true. But
just play 5 hours. Just play 5 hours.
There's a good amount of There's a good amount of it after that. Like if you really want to understand,
Right.
But honestly, if you have an Xbox, sign up for Game Pass real quick. Pay like $12 or free, depending on if you're on a trial or not. And
if you have an Xbox and you're not signed up to Game Pass, you're doing something very wrong.
Yeah, you should probably
Game
be on
Pass
Game Pass.
Is the reason to own an Xbox. But anyway, that's not PC Gamer.
It is not.
Yeah. Also put it on PC Game Pass, Microsoft. Work out. I don't know if it's got some Epic deal or something, but like the day that's up, this thing should be on PC Game Pass.
Well, hell. You haven't moved the needle for me one way or the other, fellas, but I think that's why this is the most divisive game of the year so far. I think heed their advice, do some more research. I know we have another, I don't know if it's up on the site yet or not. Sean Prescott, our Australian editor, has some interesting thoughts on it as well. I think the word anti-cover shooter was used in there. So, there are so many interesting, I think that's what's going to keep me playing no matter what, more than anything. It's just, it is an interesting game, a very fascinating sort of mess of ideas that you're going to either have chemistry with or not. And I think that's kind of exciting in and of itself to me. So if you like throwing yourself into the pot, and that's kind of like how you like to play, I'm having a great time just kind of letting it hit me in that way. Well, fellas, thank you for this very heated, actually very agreeable debate. It was very kind, and you guys were very gentlemanly. And
friendship with Morgan ended. Outriders is my new best friend.
But yeah, Morgan's thoughts are articulated at length in his review on the website. Go read that. Stephen, just go listen to him talk again. Go back in time and scroll backwards if you want his take.
You can go to my my blog post on Tumblr where I've jotted down. It's where I put everything that PC Gamer doesn't let me publish.
A surprising amount. And be sure just email me directly, and I'll send you my impressions.
I love that.
Or I'll write you a letter. And maybe we can get a pen pal thing going, specifically about Outriders, though.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, gosh, with Deathloop delayed, I think this might be it for a bit. Still, I think we got Resident Evil next month. I guess we got a Final Fantasy patch near, so it's it's slower.
It's trickling though. It's nice though. It's backlog season, right? Like this is it's the time to like
backlog
crunch into
season,
that backlog.
I think actually it's just learn a new skill season. You don't need to go play those old games. Learn how to build a bookshelf, like carve a bookshelf from a tree or some shit. I don't know. Something.
I'm playing Minecraft again.
God damn.
Go outside.
That's right. It is outside. It's Minecraft.
Okay. Outside is Minecraft. I love that. All right, guys. Well, that's going to do for the show this week. PCGamer.com. youtube.com/PCGamer. Go to Spotify, iTunes, actually Apple Podcasts. I keep forgetting they dropped that branding to find the show. And until next week, who's going to say it? Let's get a simultaneous one. Until next week, don't forget to what?
Game on.
Game on.
Okay.
That's it, fellas. Perfectly synced.
Yeah, perfectly synced. I'll do it in post.
Hello, Jacob from PC Gamer here, and I am joined by Alan and Katie. Say hello.
Hello, I'm Alan.
Solemn wave, because we're going to talk about the GPU crisis and why you can't buy a graphics card, and hopefully what could happen so that you can buy one at some point in the future. So I think kind of the main thing we want to talk about right from the get-go is how the current solution, the free market, as they say, isn't exactly working too well in that you can't get any.
Down with capitalism. Is that really the message you're getting out of this?
That's what we're going for. No, it's one of those things, isn't it, where the graphics card has become such a major point of gaming performance that, everyone's piece of advice is if you're going to spend a lot of money on one component of your PC, you really want to spend it on your graphics card because that's where you're going to get the huge boost of performance. And it's where it's going to make, it's going to be worthwhile. And then you've got the situation now where you can't actually buy a graphics card. You can buy a graphics card from 2 years ago, if you wanted one from 2 years ago. And we've got these brand new graphics cards that come out, which are excellent, and you can't buy those either. So it's a horrible stalemate where the companies that are making them want to make more of them. The consumers want to buy more of them. Cryptocurrency miners want more of them because they can make money, because that's come back into fashion. And resellers are hoping to get more of them so that they can sell them on for money because the demand's there. So you've got this kind of trifecta of things that are all making for a rather uncomfortable situation if you're trying to build a PC in 2021.
It's very much a perfect storm, isn't it? The fact that this is a good generation. I think if this had happened, a year and a bit ago, when we got when we got Turing, it would have been very much kind of like, yeah, okay, you'll be all right, just get on with it, it's fine. But Ampere's really good, and unfortunately for AMD, their cards are really good as well. So
yeah,
I say unfortunately, but they can't see. They've said nothing on this, have they? That's the surprise so far. At least Nvidia said, look, we can't produce enough, etc. AMD, not a word, just nothing at all.
And we kind of went into this saying we were going to originally talk about, what could be done to prevent resellers from selling cards, but then we kind of expanded it out because realistically that seems like a symptom of a wider problem. And the wider problem is just simply that they cannot make enough of these for the demand. The demand's coming from all sorts of different places, but the core problem is just there's just not enough being made. And so I think there's been some interesting solutions so far to try and combat that. So obviously you've had manufacturer queues is one of them. EVGA is probably the prime example of that. And that seems to have worked fairly well. It's just slow going.
Yeah, you've got some companies coming back and saying like, oh, is it all right if we up the price as well? Which, you don't want that. You've just put some money down and somebody comes back and says, can I have a bit more, please? It's like, no.
Yeah, that's a bit harsh. And we've heard of that firsthand. Where one of our reviewers he ended up spending more. He did get a much better graphics card, to be fair, than the one he originally wanted, but it cost him a lot more money than he originally wanted. I think he got a screen on it as well, so there are bonuses all then. So.
Yeah, you get the bonus there. Yeah, and so pre-orders was obviously the initial system. They launched a bunch of cards and they said, all right, okay, you can pre-order as many cards as you want, and that obviously backfired for a lot of retailers, and they suddenly turned around and said, actually, you know what, stop all pre-orders. We're not going to take any pre-orders from now on. And I think now if you go into a store, if you get it at the right time, they might have stock of a card. It might come in for a second or a picosecond. And you have that chance to just buy that card and get it shipped to you. Because they will just seen any. Yeah, I mean, it's a rare occurrence, but they just won't. So that's kind of, I guess, the old-fashioned approach to how they fix the solution.
Well, in a way, pre-orders are doing a different thing anyway, aren't they? But the idea of a pre-order is that it allows you to manage inventory, to make sure that you've got stock. It puts the power on the reseller. Thing is, they don't need that. They don't need pre-orders because they're going to sell everything they get in, and they don't want someone to pre-order and then not buy it. So pre-orders have kind of served their purpose. It's not going to work when there's this much demand. So I can see why companies are just not accepting it. Although someone like EVGA, it kind of makes sense a little bit because as a customer journey, it's much better for building that brand. I wish more people did it really, but that's where we are.
Because all the solutions we've kind of seen from this now that are trying to react to the situation have all been about chance to an extent, or like luck. They've really been luck-based solutions. Like retail lotteries has been like a luck-based thing. Just trying to get like there's auctions where like if you have the right amount of money, like okay, you can now have it as well. Like it's just unfortunate all the way around that you can't just go out, you can't just pick one up. And obviously now we've seen Nvidia kind of say, all right, well we'll have a more permanent solution. That's our cryptocurrency mining limit. That'll stop a big chunk of people that want them, and not everyone. Let's not put the blame wholly on any group here, because there's tons of people that just want these as well. They're going to sell it no matter what. But they were like, okay, we can cut out a chunk that's not intended to have these cards from having these cards, and they're quite confident about it.
Mining limiters didn't go very well, did it?
No. How
it
long
didn't go well.
How long was it around? A week?
Yeah, I don't know the exact time, but yeah, the dev drivers came out with an old version, effectively, and straight from Nvidia's menu, said we accidentally kind of lifted the limit we put on. And I think once, as we put at the time, you can't put the genie back in the bottle there, because once it's out, it's out there, and you can't really retract that or take it back. So I think that was
Is it not that that only worked for certain instances though.
Yeah,
so you had to, if you had like a rig of GPUs, that it wouldn't work.
Yeah, I think it was certain boards and there were certain combinations of things, and just because it's different partners and stuff like that, meant that I think you did have to be specific. But once you figured out, I think there's a lot of use of like dummy HDMI's and stuff like that, which kind of made it so that you could trick it again. And
of course.
It felt very much like the cat's out of the bag. We've kind of accidentally let this one go now. But it was an interesting concept to a problem that they're trying to not replicate what happened like 2017, 2018, where you just couldn't buy a graphics card for about a year. And they were saying instead, let's try and like create something where you can, we'll try and ease the demand a little bit. There's still going to be a lot of demand. I mean, that's the 3060. That's probably going to have the highest demand of any of the cards that have come out recently. And it's an interesting concept, but it was mixed with it. It hit mixed responses from the audience, because some people say, oh, you shouldn't be limiting what this graphics card can do because I bought it, and other people saying, put a limit on there, block every cryptocurrency. You're just doing Ethereum, you should get rid of all of them, and do it on all your other cards as well. So it's an interesting concept of how you potentially get around it.
I think NVIDIA, I wouldn't applaud them for it, but I think it's at least they're trying to do something, and I think that makes sense. You're trying to produce a card. 3060 is a really good example of what card to do that on, because that's kind of a mainstream consumer card, and it probably does mine quite well as well. Which, I mean, the reason AMD hasn't done something similar is because their RDNA 2 cards don't mine very well. So even if they put a block on it, it's not going to make much difference.
I think
still
we said that
as well. But
I think we said that at the time. That they're still quite good for mining anyway. Like, even no matter what card, they're still pretty decent at mining. And so they're going to sell out anyway. Like, the demand is so high, because I think that's easily overlooked. There's so much money to be made in crypto at this point because it's on riding high, that people will pay anything, and they're willing to pay above and beyond what your average gamer would pay for that same card, based on the performance versus past cards or the card they might already have. So I think it's an interesting decision by them, but then they've also kind of gone in the other direction and said, all right, we'll do custom mining graphics SKUs now as well. I think that's another solution then to move into, which we have seen in the past with the past 2017, 2018 one. And now we've seen that come back.
That's a weird one, though, because there's no resale value for those cards. If you were a miner, I mean, you're not, Jacob, but if you were, with all those cards you've been reviewing lately, you would prefer a card that you can sell on afterwards. You wouldn't want one that is only for mining. And I definitely wouldn't be interested in a second-hand mined to the hilt card. It's just a horrible idea. So it's a tricky one, but we will see how this plays out. I mean, no one knows how much an impact the miners are actually having. I think that's the thing. There is enough demand regardless. Even if there wasn't a mining thing going on right now, I think there'd still be problems. I think people would still be selling most of the cards that they can make.
Because this chip problem is further than just GPUs. This isn't just a problem with just graphics cards manufacturers not being able to get enough silicon from TSMC or Samsung. It's everyone is struggling to get components for basically everything. Car manufacturers especially is the one, I think, it's the main one that people are concerned about, just for the amount of money involved. But they can't get the chips that they need. So from that, that's a lot of things that people have tried that have failed. But if we're trying to say, like, what are the actual solutions to this, even if they're not about now, what would you say is, if you don't have a graphics card right now and you're trying to look at some way you could, whether it's be broken or you just want to play some games, like, what is your best bet right now?
You've got streaming platforms, game streaming, so things like GeForce Now and Stadia. Steam does it as well, I think. So
I think you need a machine that can render still to stream Steam, but definitely Stadia and GeForce Now. I've not tried Stadia, I have to say. I'm not interested in the slightest. But
out of the two, I've tried both quite a bit. GeForce Now is definitely the one that's taken me, but I think that's probably because as a PC gamer primarily, I've got so many games on Steam anyway, and GeForce Now ties into your Steam account. So if you've been playing on a low-powered machine and you're like, oh, I want a bit of an upgrade, I want to play this thing, and I can't even play this modern game that's come out, potentially GeForce Now is a way of doing it while retaining access to a lot of what you already had. So I think it's an interesting space for streaming, because maybe it's accelerated the adoption somewhat, because everyone's always been saying streaming is going to be this future all the time. And I'm skeptical, but I think people like a local machine. But if you can't have a local machine, that's your next best thing. Surely.
Rent one.
Yeah, rent one essentially is how it works, isn't it? Yeah, and you're right. The reason I haven't really spent any time with Stadia, I think I had something when it first launched, but it's because I have no games. I'm not going to spend money on a service like that. Whereas having access to the games I already own, if my graphics card broke, and I didn't have another one in a box there, but if my graphics card broke, I would use GeForce Now absolutely to play the games I want to play, and that's there's nothing quite like that right now, so I'd be quite happy. Alternatively, I'd use an integrated graphics solution.
So I was just about to say, you've just put an article up with a guide of how to build. If you really wanted a machine and you didn't have a graphics card, you couldn't get access to one, you didn't want to pay, over the odds for one either, but you wanted a local machine, what would you recommend in that situation?
Well, I quite like my. It's here. I'm looking to. You can't see it. I quite like my $400 PC. It's not great. Don't get me wrong. It struggles at 1080, but 720 you can play a lot of games, and it streams, which is the other thing as well. So I could do the GeForce Now thing. So I'm actually really interested to see what just launched today is the new Rocket Lake chips. What the integrated graphics on those are actually like on desktop. They could be all right if all you're trying to do is get by at the moment until you can upgrade. Assuming this ends at some point and we do actually get graphics cards, then having a machine that you can use and then add a graphics card to later makes sense. I think that's the
beauty of those the AMD Ryzen chips, the APUs you're chatting about. They have you slot into a motherboard that still has the PCI slot, and just like the Intel one, you could update this down the line and just slot a graphics card in once you can get a graphics card. So that option is available to you. And I think that's probably what we should really talk about next, like the macro level. Like, when will we actually get this influx of graphics cards that people are so, often talking about, but it keeps getting pushed back, it feels, all the way later into the year. So we initially had, it won't clear up for Q1 from NVIDIA, or until Q1 from NVIDIA last year. And that's been pushed back. I think Colette Crest slowly pushed back, and now we're kind of like May, June, and now it's kind of Q3.
It's been about 5 times that, yeah.
Yeah.
I think maybe, everyone's kind of reacting to, NVIDIA is working with Samsung, you've got AMD working with TSMC. I mean, they're reacting to what those companies are telling them as well. They're not even getting it directly firsthand. It's kind of always going through these chains of where you're getting components from. So when do you kind of, if you had to take a guess, and this is a fraught question that I'm throwing into you two now, if you had to take a guess, when would you say that, you could walk in, maybe not walk into shop, but you could go online and you could see a graphics card that's just been in stock and it's steadily in stock?
Exit stage left. You said something earlier that made me, I thought you might be slightly optimistic with it. Is you said, when do you think there's going to be this influx? And I don't think there is. I think demand it's going to be a trickle. It's going to be a trickle for a long, long time. I think NVIDIA said earlier on that it was going to be end of Q1 maybe, and then I think Jacob, you spotted it. Their Q1 is different to everyone else's Q1, which threw things a little bit. But even looking now, we had the report last week from Asus saying that, look, as normal, Q1 you don't sell as many as you did from the previous Q4. So NVIDIA ordered less from Samsung, which is like, yeah, okay, that's what the market does. But we're not in normal times, so we haven't hit the demand. We haven't solved that problem, and things are going to start ramping up now again. And if we start going back to work, is there going to be more demand as people upgrade their machines? I mean, it's just like, I just hate to say it, I think it's going to get worse. I think we're going to be like this until late summer, and then maybe we'll start getting something. The thing is, these things are ordered so far in advance, and demand, and it's not just graphics cards, it's everything. So the capacity of TSMC, of Samsung, is used up, and that's not going to change anytime soon. It's just, there's going to be more there.
I think that's a good point. It's not as simple as just ordering more, and it turns up, these are multi-billion-dollar fabs that are running at capacity most of the time, where they've been ordered with these real like watertight contracts going way back with hundreds of high-profile companies. But I think that leads on to something quite interesting. And you didn't answer my question. I want to the date when you think it was to be back, but we'll move on past that. But
August the 3rd. Right.
I think that's quite early. But an interesting thing about that is, Apple are moving off TSMC's 7 nanometer. They're kind of shifting over to 5 nanometer, and they're always pushing that, going for the next, latest and greatest thing. And that will free up some capacity. I mean, we're all chatting from rumors here because, TSMC are a very kind of secretive company with what goes on their orders, as you can imagine, any company like that would be. But, the rumor is Apple are kind of shifting off and AMD's kind of adopting, they're taking up a lot more of that space that's being left over. So do you think that for maybe AMD, they'll start improving their supply?
Do you want to take that, Katie? No.
Not massively.
I mean, we don't know, do we? That's the thing. So NVIDIA's supposed to be tapping up TSMC at the same time as well. Intel has announced that they're going to be entering the contract fabrication business. Is that a word? But that's years down the line. So the problem right now is what capacity is out there that we know of has gone.
It's a right now problem, and that's going to stretch for probably the year if you think about it, because like you're saying, they're ordering so far in advance that the capacity that is available right now is what's building the stuff that you're going to get right towards the end of the year. And there's really no way of changing that, however bleak that might seem. But but I think with the AMD thing, maybe that they've got an interesting balance, unlike Nvidia, who Nvidia they want to make graphics cards. They just want to make graphics cards. That gaming is a huge segment for them, and regardless of what anyone might say on here or there, like they want to sell as many of these graphics cards as they can, and gaming is a huge segment, so they're going to try and build as many. AMD are also going to try and build as many graphics cards as they can, but they're also contained with themselves in that they've got this huge and tremendously successful CPU business alongside. And AMD's graphics business is definitely improved. RDNA is like a huge step, but compared to Ryzen, I mean, Ryzen and EPYC are really making a huge dent on Intel's market share, and that momentum is going to be something that obviously they're going to want to keep going. So if they get more of TSMC's capacity, which, like you say, might not even really make a huge difference this year, might be more next year. How much of that are they thinking? Well, that's going to go into, making these chips, and then of course you've got consoles as well, which that's probably a very difficult and complex relationship between Microsoft, Sony, and AMD, which are also facing shortages. So it's tough to guess to when it's going to be better or actually have like a firm answer. But
I think one thing with NVIDIA, in their defense of this, they may not produce CPUs, but they've got different prongs in their industries. I mean, they've got the automotive, they've got server side, kind of the whole, AI stuff. I mean, they're big as well. So I don't know. The yields on those are probably terrifyingly small, but they make so much money that, it all works out financially, but they're competing with their graphics arm as well. And it's just like, now how does it work with like 3090s versus 3060s? How much space? It's quite the juggling act. I mean,
I think you've kind of seen that juggling act even in the gaming space with, say, maybe like the 3060 Ti is like a smaller version of the same GPU that's going in the higher, and you always see that segmentation where they're using the different yields of however many of this chip is hitting this many cores that they can use at this frequency, and they'll keep making smaller and smaller GPU graphics cards with the same chip to kind of get those higher yields up. And I think you're kind of seeing that same thing. Are they trying to get out as many as they can right now instead of just, as they traditionally might, leave a first wave of cards out there and go, okay, all right, now we'll bring a TI in and we'll do it. Now they're just like, hey, we've got these GPUs. They're not going to sit around. Let's put them into a card. Let's get them out there. And I think obviously all of this has kind of led us to a bleak conclusion of we don't know if we do have any answers. But I'm trying to think of some way of having some positivity going towards the end of the year. Looking back at 2017, 2018, and it did last a very long time. But when it did come back and stock came back, it did come back quick. And it did feel like the prices kind of aligned in a way that was a bit more favorable. And like you said, the secondhand market comes about as well, because cryptocurrency miners, if it drops, the value drops. And this is all, based on the fact that it does have to kind of drop in, all the profitability or the difficulty has to go up. A range of different things has to happen in order for cryptocurrency miners anyway to just suddenly go flood the market with this stuff. We don't want it anymore. We don't want to lose money on it. We don't hold on to it. It makes us more money to sell it. So, is that a potential way out in the interim, even before supply comes back, if there is a burst of the crypto bubble? Not much positivity I'm seeing.
Yeah, no, that could happen. And it wouldn't take much for the crypto market to suddenly recheck itself and everything stabilize again, and maybe graphics cards would come back. And I mean, they've not had them for long, so there probably would be some good bargains out there. But if you look on eBay, other resellers are available, but if you look on eBay, it's not a pretty sight because the demand is so high right now. It's quite hard to predict where it's going to go. I mean, you can't get anything. This we're in that whole, and it's like 4 years ago, where it's not that you just can't get the new good cards that are really good. You can't get anything. There are no graphics cards. I think there's 1050 Ti's for like $400 and things. I'm like, no, I'm good, thanks.
I mean, they came back obviously as like a technically never discontinued, so it wasn't like they brought it back from the dead, but realistically discontinued. Let's just say the fact they're discontinued, but they come back and they're the same price that they were really when they came out for this card. That's a 10 series card that was it's the not a bad performer at 1080p by any means, but just being superseded by so many better cards by this point. Like, it's just old in terms of the performance that it can offer, bang for your buck, I suppose. And even that is gone. So where do we go? I'm trying to have some positivity. I'm trying to end on a positive note. What is there? What hope is there?
I think one way of looking at this is you can sort out your machine. Robin, who makes PC Gamer magazine, he needs to upgrade his machine. He can't go graphics card right now. I think he might have even ordered a new machine, and he's just waiting for it to arrive. So, but his way of looking at it is he's playing simpler games, older games, waiting to hit Assassin's Creed Valhalla when he gets his new machine. So you just put off. And to be honest, there's something like Cyberpunk 2077. Waiting's possibly not a bad idea. Yeah. So maybe that's the way you do it, is you just play some games that aren't graphically demanding, that work.
Go back and play some point and click games in your browser. Still PC gaming, it counts.
It does. No, it doesn't.
And I suppose there's that thing of, can you get a little bit more juice out of your current machine? Can you squeeze a little bit more out of it? If you're really running it to the ragged edge, can you just overclock it to hell and back and just say, all right, this is its last run, charged as it goes out, a bit suicidal, maybe it won't work too well, but we'll give it a bash and just crank the voltage up and see what happens.
Yeah, I think that works. And we've got a feature on the hardware side of things at the moment about getting more from your machine, and airflow is the biggie, because these CPUs and GPUs are so temperature sensitive now that if you can improve the airflow in your machine, you will get more out of it anyway. So that's the thing. Spend a bit of time, give it a bit of TLC. You can't get a GPU, so make the most of what you've got, and that's a good way of doing it. You'll get a few more frames out of it, or just smoother. To be honest, a lot of the times with older graphics cards, it's the lows that are the problem. Your average might be fine, but you'll really dip down. So making sure machine's running as well as it can it makes sense.
And if that's not an option, then potentially streaming, I guess. Then
streaming's
that's kind of what we're.
I think I've streamed a little bit in this last 12 months, whatever, and it's better than I thought. I always assumed you needed a really good internet connection, and you do a bit, but it's actually been very smooth. I thought you could feel the lag. You can't necessarily. Depends on the game. I'm not suggesting you play a competitive first-person shooter streaming. There are probably people that do it. But
try and play Valorant streaming. I don't think it's too much fun, but
it's an option. I think it's an option.
And remember, we are learning things like patience.
Yeah, we're learning a moral lesson as well, and we're becoming better people for it, apparently. So
I'm really not.
Okay, well, I think on that, that message of hope, I guess we'll end it there. But thanks for joining me, you two.
Cool.
And
Cheers,
we'll see you next time.
Take care.